Hello friends, my name is Jess and welcome back to my channel, Books Past Bedtime. So today I have a recommendation video for you. I've been sitting on this video in my drafts for a while, but now that I'm finally back to posting like kind of consistently, I'm gonna finally make it instead of just having it sit as a scripted document on my computer. So I'm really excited about this actually, and I have been since I came up with the idea. Basically, as you saw from the title, this is going to be that classic booktube video where if you liked this book, I'm going to recommend you read this other book that's similar in some type of way, except my twist on this is that I'm going to be taking popular Booktok books, recommending if you liked that book, if you liked some of the tropes in it, that kind of thing. If you liked that book or some aspects of that book, I'm going to recommend you an underrated queer book to read next. Because as you know, this channel is all about recommending queer books, queer authors. So that is what the concept of this video is. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm sure it will make even more sense as we get further into it. Just a few disclaimers before we get started. One, there are some queer books that are popular Booktok books, and I actually have included those on this list. I'm not saying there are never popular queer books, never popular queer Booktok books. That's the first disclaimer. The second disclaimer is that I have not necessarily read all of the Booktok books that I'm going to be basing recommendations off of. I would say I've read 50%. And the other 50% I just like know about, looked up the tropes for, know the general vibes. Just to throw that out there, like if I get something wrong about a book, it might be because I haven't read it. I don't know if that's like not allowed, but whatever. I like my list and I think I have come up with some really good comparisons and some really good recommendations. Let's just like roll with it, you know? The last disclaimer is that I will say I do not really have my thumb on the pulse of Booktok culture. Like I feel like I know what some of the like classically popular books are, the books that have been popular for a long time, the ones you see like all over the place. This might not necessarily be exactly what the Booktok girlies are reading right now, but I do think that it's a good like approximation, and it is books that at least at some point have been big on Booktok and are just like really popular in general in the mainstream. I guess that's maybe a better way to put it, like these are mainstream popular books. That was kind of a lot, but you get my drift. Queer books exist on Booktok. I haven't read all of these, and there might be more popular Booktok books that I'm not mentioning here. This is my list, okay? Get over it. Alright, with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't start with the combo that inspired this entire video concept, and that is the recommendation that if you enjoyed From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata, you would also love Kiss and Cry by Kira Andrews. Now, I have read both of these books. I actually really enjoy From Lukov with Love. It is a traditional romance. It is indie published though, and it's really good. If you haven't read it, I would recommend it. It has the tropes enemies to lovers. It's an ice skating sports romance. The two are paired like kind of against their will for pairs skating to kind of continue their careers, which they don't have in singles anymore or something. The romance is also a slow burn. There's a grumpy sunshine element, and of course forced proximity because they have to practice together and work as a team, work as a pairs team. On the flip side, Kiss and Cry by Kira Andrews is literally just like the gay version of From Lukov with Love, but better. Mostly because it's shorter, you know, you get to a little quicker. If you catch my drift. But Kiss and Cry by Kira Andrews is an Achillean romance, and it follows two guys. They like hate each other, have always been rivals, have always competed for like first and second at every competition they've ever been to, and now they're forced to train together at the same gym because they're now being coached by the same coaches. And there's definitely a lot of grumpy sunshine going on. It's a slow burn in the way that like most things are slow burn. So From Lukov with Love is like extra slow burn in that they don't like do the nasty until the last like 5% of the book. Like you have to read 95% of that book to get to it. Kira Andrews usually typically around the 50% mark gets into it, so you do get more like of them actually being together, which I prefer in my romances. But yeah, these books are like very similar on paper, have very similar vibes while you're reading them. I think the main difference is that From Lukov with Love is slower and straight. But I definitely still think if you loved From Luke Off with Love, you would absolutely love Kiss and Cry by Carrie Andrews. The next recommendation on my list is if you liked The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, I think you would like A Marvelous Light by Freya Marks. So The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune is one of my personal favorite books, and I love that it's as popular as it is. I feel like I've been seeing it pop up on Booktok and Bookstagram more frequently, and I love that more people are reading it. But I also desperately love A Marvelous Light by Freya Marks. I know I've recommended this before on my channel, but if this is your first time here, this is an incredible trilogy, and there are so many similarities between these two books. Both of the books have magical societies. They have magic but are set in the real world. In some ways, I feel like The House in the Cerulean Sea kind of has more integration between magic and the real world, but it's not set in a full fantasy world. Neither of them are. They both have slow and sweet queer romances that are just like mostly wholesome and adorable, and make you like scream and kick your feet. I will say that I think A Marvelous Light gets spicier than The House in the Cerulean Sea does, but they both have like such beautiful writing, such beautiful character growth and development, and like intriguing plot lines. A Marvelous Light by Freya Marks probably will be a little bit more like feeling high stakes than The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is more of a cozy mystery, but I think at their core they have so many similar common themes, and I do think if you loved The House in the Cerulean Sea, you would definitely love A Marvelous Light by Freya Marks so much. Next, a iconic Booktok book is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is also a queer book. It's a queer historical retelling of Achilles and Patroclus, and I do like this book, although it's not my favorite. I don't love it as much as everyone else does. I just thought it's like kind of slow and kind of sad. Like I don't know, I prefer romances with like happy endings. I do know why a ton of people love it, and I do know it's like a lot of people's introduction to queer romance and queer literature, so I'm like not mad about it. But I will say if you liked The Song of Achilles, I also think you would love Solomon's Crown by Natasha Siegel. Both of these are historical romances, so like base core same thing. They're both also like historical retellings, so if you like history, and if you like, well, I guess, is Achilles and Patroclus a myth? Obviously I'm not really up on my history. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but they're based on real people and events. There's also in both of these books the concept of like pain and tragedy, and like in both of them you're screaming at the book like, why can these two not be together? There's like so many forces outside of their control that are like keeping them apart, you know? They also like both just have such beautiful writing and quotable passages. Like I underlined so many things in both of these books. Just like immaculate beautiful writing, and the way they speak to one another is so lovely. And while I was reading Solomon's Crown, I just kept thinking like, if only everyone who read Song of Achilles read this book as well, like I think their minds would be blown. Like I liked Solomon's Crown by Natasha Siegel better than Song of Achilles. I will say some reviews are negative if you like really know the history about the two real life people that they're based on, but I obviously don't, so I didn't care. I feel like if you go into it with that concept of like, oh, this is just like fan fiction of these historical figures, you'll love it. It's great. Just don't think about it too hard, you know? Whereas I do feel like The Song of Achilles has more of like that element of realism in it, but I am not a realistic girly. I like to live in my delusion. Especially when it comes to reading, I prefer my books to be a little bit delulu. So if you're like me, I think you would love Solomon's Crown. And also just in general, if you've liked Song of Achilles, you should give it a try because it was really good. Another Booktok darling is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I absolutely love this book. It is so fantastic. We all love it. We all love the movie. It's so cute and fun. If you liked this book, I'm gonna throw a lesbian curveball at you. I think you should read her Royal Happiness by Lola Keeley. Both of these books are so fun and like light and just a good time, you know? They're both about political forbidden romances. They both involve British royalty. They both involve some kind of faking of a relationship between the two. In Red, White, and Royal Blue, they obviously fake like a friendship even though they are enemies and dislike each other in the beginning. In Her Royal Happiness, they do have a fake relationship for PR reasons, and they're both just like sweet and caring romances where you're just like kicking your feet and smiling at the book. Like they're just both such good, cute, adorable reads, and they just like make you happy, you know? They're just the kind of books that are like comforting, joyful, and fun to read. So I feel like if you liked Red, White, and Royal Blue, you would definitely like Her Royal Happiness by Lola Keeley. for sure. Right, this is the first book on the list I haven't read. But if you liked Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, I am going to recommend you read Prince in Disguise by Tavia Lark. I know I'm Tavia Lark's biggest fan. If you've been here before, you know this about me, but just the perfection of the way these two books align is insane. Both share the concept of dragons and dragon riders, and I believe it's similar in that the dragons and the dragon riders bond with one another and can kind of communicate in their heads. So if you like that concept, which is a really fucking cool concept, you definitely should read Prince in Disguise because it delivers on that front. Pretty much this whole series actually does have dragons or various like cool mythical animals in it that communicate with the humans. I love one of my favorite parts about the series, honestly. Also, both of these are fantasy romances. Obviously, Tavia Lark writes the best fantasy romances. My favorite of all time. Fourth Wing is a obviously straight pairing where Prince in Disguise is an MM pairing, but they're both fantasy romances set in cool worlds, different from our own, magic involved, things like that. I also read in the description of Fourth Wing that like a big part of the plot and like the concept of the story is that the main character is perceived as like small, fragile, weak, etc., which is also the same in Prince in Disguise. Our main character is underestimated a lot, is deemed as small and weak as he was ill for most of his childhood, but he really has a lot of strength in other ways, and he's very incredibly like intelligent and gifted in other ways. So I felt like the comparison between the main characters also is there in these books as well. So definitely, if you liked Fourth Wing, check out Prince in Disguise by Tavia Lark. Next is another book I haven't read before, but that is Twisted Games by Anna Wong, and I'm going to recommend that if you liked this book, you should read another book by Tavia Lark, and that is Prince and Bodyguard. This is in the same series. All of these books do have kind of like an overarching connection, but they're all individual romances, so you don't really need to read them all in order, but you can if you want to. I would recommend for best experience, but not necessary. As you can probably tell by the title, Prince and Bodyguard is an MM romance between a prince and his bodyguard, which is also the concept of Twisted Games, except she's a princess and he's her bodyguard. So if you like the idea of like forbidden love, pending arranged royal marriages, a slow to medium burn, and a possessive hero, which are all characteristics of twisted love, I definitely think you would also love Prince and Bodyguard. Not to mention Prince and Bodyguard by Tavia Lark is one of the most beautiful, precious, sweet romances I've ever read in my life. Like the two are kind of oblivious, so also if you like that, I would recommend this book because it's just so funny to like watch them like dance around one another when they've both been in love with each other forever. It's just like super cute. It's just very like emotional too. Like Prince and Bodyguard is probably my favorite in the series. Like the way they speak to each other is just so beautiful and lovely. It's insane. Next on my list is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. I don't know how big this book is on Booktok. I think it is, and I know a lot of the like the booktube girlies who came up on booktube through Booktok love the Shatter Me series. I remember when it came out on booktube when I was in high school, and I never got around to reading it, and I probably will never because it's not really something that interests me any longer, but it does bear a striking similarity to another Tavia Lark book called The Necromancer's Light. So the whole concept of Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi is the main character, her touch is fatal, where in The Necromancer's Light, our main character's whole thing is that he will die if no one touches him. And it's because he has this magic that needs to be charged by physical contact and human touch, but everyone sees him as poisonous and like a bad guy because he's a necromancer and they don't want to touch him. But Arthur, this guy he meets to and like hires to help him with this job, is different, and they turn out to be fated mates. It's a fantasy romance with hurt and comfort, has magic in it, a lot of the same similar elements as Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi, and I just think it's funny like how they're kind of like the inverse of one another. But I can imagine like if you liked the concepts of Shatter Me and like the romance and the fantasy of it all and the magic and the touch concepts, I feel like you would also like The Necromancer's Light. It's also just really good, you know, like having a cuddle for survival, not just warmth. Is incredible and amazing. Would definitely recommend very highly. Next on my list is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This was honestly one of the first adult romances I ever read, and I actually really loved it, so I feel like it holds like a special place in my heart because of that. But if you are looking for like a workplace romance, grumpy sunshine pairing, pining characters who are oblivious to one another's feelings, sex scenes, friends to lovers, slow burn, total creative control by Joanna Chambers has it all. Literally has it all. I think my favorite thing about The Hating Game by Sally Thorne was the like sex scene where he's taking care of her when she has the flu or whatever, and same scenes happen in Total Creative Control. Total Creative Control is like a boss and employee more so situation, whereas the Hating Game they're co-workers, but it's still workplace romance. They still are like know each other for a while before they get into the romance and realize their feelings for one another. Both are super cute. Total Creative Control is a male-male pairing, but yeah, they're both so fun. So I definitely think if you like the Hating Game, there's no reason why you wouldn't like Total Creative Control by Join the Chambers. Next on my list is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. And if you like The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren, which I did, but I like Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding even more. This book is by Chancia C. Higgins, and both books involve pretending to be married. In The Honeymooners, obviously the two main characters pretend to be married so that they can use the honeymoon that the bride and groom have gotten sick from, but they like hate each other. Whereas in Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding, the two are participating in a reality TV show where if they can like convince their family that they're getting married in 6 weeks, they win money or something. But of course they fall in love along the journey of being fake married. Both books like are frustrating that they have lots of lying to loved ones, but everything like works out in the end because they fall in love, you know? There's not a lot of books out there where people like fake being married. Like fake dating is one thing, but being fake married is another. So I couldn't help but make the comparison between these two. Both are just like, again, fun, light, joyful reads. So I really think that if you liked The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren, you would love Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding by Chancia C. Higgins. And last but not least, if you liked Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, I think you would also like Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. As far as I understand it, both of these books are hockey romances. We love a sports romance, especially hockey. I don't know what it is about hockey. I don't even like hockey. I don't like any sports in real life, but like I could care less that it's hockey, but for some reason in a book it just like hits different. Hockey Boy hits different. In Heated Rivalry, both of the boys are hockey players. In Icebreaker, I think the girl is an ice skater and the guy is a hockey player. Doesn't matter. Same thing. They're both contemporary romances. They're both opposites attract. They both have like a serious / golden retriever pairings. And there's also forced proximity in both of them and gratuitous sex. What more could you ask for, honestly? I feel like that's what everyone complains about with Icebreaker, but honestly that's the best part of Heated Rivalry. So in Heated Rivalry, at least, the two are rivals and they're on different hockey teams, but there's like this insane chemistry between them that just blows up one day. And even though they're like rivals on the ice and play up their rivalry to the cameras and even like somewhat in person dislike each other, they start hooking up behind the scenes, and this goes on for like years, and eventually they form like a closer connection, bond, friendship that turns into a romance. But then they have to navigate the fact that they are pro hockey players in the NHL, and so are they gonna come out? Are they gonna like make their relationship public? The strain of like hiding it in private. So there's all of those elements weaved in as well. At a base level, if you like fun hockey contemporary romances with lots of sex like Icebreaker, you would also love Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. Alright, and that was my list. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you found some good recommendations from it. If you did like this video, please let me know in the comments down below, and also if you would like me to do this like concept again, I would love to. If you have any recommendations for like Booktok books that you'd like me to find a similar queer book for, leave them in the comments down below. I feel like I came up with the ones that were like obvious to me, but I would love like a challenge of like trying to find, you know, pairings for other popular books that I like maybe just aren't quite on my radar yet. So leave that in the comments. Feel free to leave any other thoughts in the comments as well. I'm open to hearing anything. But yeah, I think that's going to be all from me today. I'm gonna leave all the books I recommended linked in the description down below if you're interested in any of them. Any purchase through my link, it's no extra cost to you, but I earn a tiny commission, helps out this channel. Also, free ways to help out this channel: liking this video, subscribing, commenting down below. Anything helps, and I appreciate honestly you just being here and watching, especially if you've made it this far. If you want to follow me on social media, those links are down below, and I think that is all for me today. So thank you so much for watching, for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.